So to discuss this morning, let's bring in financial markets analyst and author of Planet Ponzi, Mitch Firestein, and research fellow at the Heritage Foundation and senior advisor at the Free Enterprise Initiative, Alan Mendenhall. Gentlemen, good morning to you both. Thank you for being here. So, Mitch, I'll start with you. How will these recently imposed tariffs benefit the U.S., and are there any specific foreign relationships that you worried might be weakened by this?
Look, I'm not worried about weakening relationships. I'm worried about the principle of it is to level the playing field. It's not to take advantage of anyone. The United States has been taken advantage of for years, decades, and no president stood up to the other countries. So we're using the Trade Act of 1974, which is significant. So it's a different way around. And Section 301 had a Section A and Section B, not to get into the weeds. So they went out and they actually spoke to people, did investigations, and they found that this would be a legitimate tariff that would stand the muster of court. And obviously, the party of obstruction has launched a lawsuit in the International Trade Court in Lower Manhattan, which just happens to be 6 Democratic-appointed judges and 3 Republican judges.
Interesting. Well, Alan, trade partners around the world are upset with this move, but should we be prioritizing the needs of America first? To Mitch's point, a lot of people just kind of shocked to see the pendulum swing the other way here.
Yeah, well, I think the president is looking at more targeted tariffs as a strategy. So besides these Section 301 forced labor tariffs, the president this week announced Section 338 tariffs against Canada, which would not take effect until August 16th. And these were 50% tariffs. Now, this is clearly a negotiating tool to try to get something that is more of a reciprocal relationship with tariffs. With the Section 301 forced labor provisions, he's focusing on something that is more unpopular than tariffs, which is slavery. People don't like slavery, and he's pointing to forced labor arrangements through all these countries have some sort of ties to forced labor. They're importing from countries with forced labor. And so I think strategically this is a sound decision. Also, to institute tariffs through this provision, there has to be first an investigation through the Office of the United States Trade Representative. That process has to play out. The USTR has to make a recommendation to the president before he can impose the tariffs. So procedurally, this is much, much different than the IEEPA tariffs that were struck down in February by the Supreme Court under kind of emergency powers.
Yeah, Mitch, to the point just made there, these tariffs are a result of trading partners failing to clamp down on trade goods made with forced labor. So here's U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on the matter.
In 2018, when we redid NAFTA, one of the new provisions we forced Canada and Mexico to take was their own prohibition on forced labor. So in USMCA, we obligated them to do that. A few years later, we're finding that they aren't actually enforcing that. So they're included in this action.
The U.S. has been enforcing a forced labor import ban for nearly a century. Was it finally time to crack down on this issue?
Well, the interesting thing about this is think about this. We have Canada, which we're having these tariffs on because we've got numerous issues with the government of Canada. However, our GDP is about 10 times what Canada's is. So we are gigantic. So it doesn't hurt us. So if they want to cut their noses off to spite their faces, good luck to them. These are negotiating tools. It's a carrot and a stick, and we're just trying to level the playing field and be fair to everybody. But we've got to be fair to us, too.
Yeah, and Alan, how long do you expect these tariffs to hold, or do you see it kind of balancing out here?
Well, you know, it just depends. I mean, it depends what the countries do in response. So I think we've got 60 different economies to negotiate with. And meanwhile, we've also got Section 301 has another provision with the unfair trade practices where we're talking about 25% tariff on Brazil. That's different from the forced labor. We've got all the Section 232 tariffs that have been ongoing. And they're global. They apply basically to everyone. So it's a little bit different from the situation with Canada, where we have a deadline. Canada has to meet the deadline. You know, when you're dealing with 60 plus countries, each one doing something slightly different, the timeline could be different for each country. Every country is going to have to come to the table and make some kind of change or make some kind of negotiation with the administration.
Yeah, Mitch, you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, there's one real quick point for the viewers out there. They need to know that anything that's going to be disruptive to our economy will not be the part of the tariffs. And there's a specific carve out for things that would disrupt our economy or things we'd have shortages in that will not be tariffed.
Great point. Thank you for mentioning that. All right, Mitch Firestein and Alan Mendenhall, great discussion, gentlemen. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.